Hello, everyone. Welcome back, Nerd Buds Podcast. It's been a while since we've done this, and that's because we're not really comfortable with it yet. We're still kind
Yeah,
of getting comfortable with the podcast side of things. Every time we start recording, we kind of just freeze up a lot, and
yeah. Even though we
also,
record every week and we play video games, but for some
yeah,
reason, when we don't have the video
yeah,
game in front of us, we just lose all talking
yeah.
ability. I don't know.
I think it's just a little
Yeah,
different because like we have to, we don't have anything to fidget with our hands. We just kind of have to be talking generally. And
yeah,
I think that in the back of our heads, we're just kind of like, oh, I have to say something interesting that it just overtakes a natural discussion.
yeah.
But we try to keep this as candid as we can. We just want
We
this to be
can.
sort of a chill discussion area for everyone. And if you guys want to participate in the comments, we would love that
We should.
very much.
Yeah, we're gonna
Um,
try and do the podcast a bit more often because we kind of neglected it for in favor of the YouTube channel.
yeah,
And we've also kind of realized an issue with the YouTube channel is we wanted to do both movies and video games in it, but it kind of really shifted towards only video games. So
yeah,
moving forward, we're hoping to do the podcast more regularly, and we're hoping to make it more centered on discussing movies instead
yeah,
of discussing video games, because the video games are more for the YouTube side of things and movies will be for the podcast side. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, we think that'll be a good way of trying to reintroduce the podcast to the Nerd Buds experience.
So we're back here. It's kind of a similar thing, a similar topic that we did last time, which
Mhm.
was what movies could translate well into video games. Now it's kind of the other way around. We're discussing what video games would work for as a movie.
Mhm.
Obviously, video game adaptations have a long history of just not being good, but I think it's changing now. We have some good stuff
Yeah.
coming out. You know, we have
Mhm.
Arcane, Fallout just came out. That's been kind of a big
That was
hit.
a
A lot.
hit.
Last of
Yeah.
Us,
Last of
you
Us
know,
with season
that is
2
really
coming out
good.
next year. That'll
Yeah.
be pretty good.
So I think that sort of video game adaptation curse is
Mhm.
slowly
Yeah.
changing for the better. Also, what's important is that whichever film company is actually producing it allows the filmmakers to actually make it the film that it needs to be. Because I've heard a lot of like stories of just a lot of film
Mhm.
companies just getting in the way of
Yeah.
what it's supposed to be
Like
in its core.
The Witcher is a good example of that, of like the
Yes.
writers getting in the way of what the story should be,
Mm-hmm.
and then people have to push back to
Yeah.
kind of make it,
It.
make
I.
it a decent
Yeah.
adaptation. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
even heard once. I think so. They were trying to make an Uncharted movie for a while. This was way back then. It was like early 2000s, I think, or whenever the first Uncharted came out. And Mark Wahlberg was, funny enough, was supposed to play Nathan Drake. But because years later they hadn't made the movie, Mark Wahlberg was too old to play Nathan Drake, so he he ended up playing Sully. um,
Arguably
but
kind of worse in my
yeah,
opinion, but anyways, yeah.
yeah. But in that version of the movie, this is just a rumor. I don't know if this is true or not. But I heard that they were gonna make Elena this like sexy like adventurer, and they were just gonna change everything. Um, which I don't know. I'm so curious. In some other world, we got
Yeah.
that movie.
I
Um,
definitely don't think the Uncharted movie was bad, but it
yeah,
definitely wasn't the story that it should have been. It could have been a lot better.
yeah. It's just I think I think part of the problem. I think it's actually really hard to adapt Uncharted because we've kind of grown attached to the Nathan Drake that we know, which is
Yeah.
Nolan North, right? That's kind of just like if it's not Nolan North, then I don't know who who else would really do it justice. Like who
Yeah.
could actually play an actual Nathan Drake in real life?
I did see there is actually a YouTube short of Nathan Fillion playing
See,
Nathan
yeah,
Drake, and
that's
that was really good. Yeah.
that's the closest we've
Mhm.
ever gone into an actual Nathan Drake. I also like, man, if they had made this a couple of years ago with Nathan Fillion, with a good script, of course, it would have been
Hmm.
great.
Yeah, of course. A script is everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, my issues with the Uncharted movie with Tom Holland was just kind of it felt like it looked like Uncharted, but it didn't have the same kind of feeling that
Yeah, it definitely
playing the
didn't.
video
It
game.
was very much centered towards like being more like an action superhero kind
Yeah.
of like action star sort of oriented film instead of like the the smart-witted treasure hunter that we all came to
Hmm.
know and love, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It
it did
felt
kind of
very Michael Bay in my opinion. It felt like a Michael Bay
right. Yeah.
movie, not directed by Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at times it just kind of I don't know. Like we have Tom Holland playing
Hmm.
Nathan Drake, and I don't think this was Tom Holland's fault. It was really just the script things that he said just didn't even feel like Nathan. It just didn't have the his cadence, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I
which
think they
again,
were
it's just yeah,
yeah.
it just
Sorry,
really
what were you saying?
depends on who's behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they were trying to
Um.
go for a younger version of Nathan Drake, trying to capture like more of
Hmm.
like his youth, but it
Yeah.
just yeah, it didn't really feel like that young version they're trying to play didn't really feel like he would evolve into the Nathan Drake that we knew.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of a it felt like a separate person. And Sully definitely felt like a different person entirely. I don't know who the heck that was, but that was not Sully at all.
I mean,
I'm
I don't know.
sorry.
I don't know what they were planning
Yeah.
because there was like was it an after credit scene or was it just the ending where he
Oh no, it
finally
was.
got
I
the
think it was an
mustache?
after credit scene where he got the mustache.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he got the mustache, and I don't know if it was
Yeah.
like, you know, these characters aren't who you know them as in the video games, but they're
Hmm.
slowly turning into that. And maybe if there
Yeah.
was going to be a sequel, that's when we get like the real Nathan Drake or the real
Hmm.
Sully. Um, no, we never
And
got that.
another issue
Not yet,
that I
anyway.
found in the film was they were trying to recreate different scenes that happened in the actual Uncharted games. Like for instance, when
Yeah.
Tom Holland is falling through the sky after like getting out of a plane and he's like
Mm-hmm.
climbing on the cargo. That's taken straight out of Uncharted 3, and they're just
Yeah.
recapturing that action sequence that happened in the third game. And I think that was a mistake. I think they should have like stayed clear of like because this is supposed to be a whole separate story about Nathan when he was younger.
Yeah.
So why are they rehashing stuff that happened later on in his life? It just
Yeah.
seems like an odd choice, and I feel like they should have stayed away from doing stuff like that. But
Yeah.
they were gun ho on that, I guess.
But I mean, okay, well, since we're on the topic of Uncharted now, like Last of Us worked. And that was actually something I originally didn't work, and that it was something I was really worried about. And when
Which is
it came
fair.
out, they pulled it off. And I was very surprised. And so I feel like also a show is actually a better platform for a video game adaptation because in a video game you spend so much time with these characters, and I feel like
Hmm.
you also need to spend a lot of time with with the characters in order for
That's
those who
true.
haven't played the video game to understand
Hmm.
what it feels like to be in this journey with the
Yeah,
characters.
I
And
I think
that's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's why I think Last of Us worked well, but also I think what also helped in Last of Us's case was that there were parts where they kind of just did their own thing without really diverging from the actual story. Like for example, with Bill's story and his partner. Like in the game, it was only hinted that he had a partner and that he was gay. And in the show, it expanded on that and literally made it, I would say, one of the best episodes in in the show so far. And
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
kind
that
of
was
like
a
it
strong
stands.
episode.
Yeah, it
Hmm.
not only does it translate the story from the game well, but it also kind of stands alone. It stands by itself without really relying on you having played the game in order,
Hmm.
And I think that's also the issue with like Uncharted games. There's certain, I mean, not Uncharted games, the Uncharted movie adaptation. was that there were a lot of things where it's like you needed to have played the game to kind of understand why they were doing certain things, like that plane scene. I was like, oh, that was from the game. Like it's just
Yeah.
kind of like fan service kind of shit. And obviously, there's still some fan service in the Last of Us show, but it doesn't rely on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It could
Yeah.
stand alone and be a good story. Like for instance, I played The Last of Us a few months before I actually watched the show for the first time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I got a lot of the references and I got to see like different parts of the story unfold, like with Bill and like with Sam and his brother. There was like new stuff behind that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching it with my partner Abby, and she never played the games at all, and she absolutely loved the show. She thought it was great. So it stands alone,
Oh man.
and they're able to tell the story of The Last of Us without having played the games before, and still bring in this new fan base that we've never seen. I think it's great. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Now that you said that, um, it's so
Where you
cool
going?
because you play the video games and she
Yeah.
hasn't, and we know no spoilers. We won't say what happens, but in part two, a very bold choice with this story happens, and I'm so excited to find out what Abby thinks about the story and the direction that it goes to
Yeah.
because I don't know how they're gonna do it. I don't know how they're gonna do it, and I hope I don't know. I have
Yeah.
mixed feelings about the video game and how
For
it tells its story, but
yeah.
I'm so curious how they execute it
Yeah, the
in the show.
video game, for those that haven't played it, the second video game is very divisive. It definitely
Yeah.
split the fan base. There are people that love it, and there are people that absolutely hate it. I'm one of the people that loves it. Um,
Mm.
but I could definitely see why people are really angry, and I completely understand. So yeah, I'm excited to see what it does to the people that only know the TV show. Like, will they have
Yeah.
the same reaction, or will they actually be able to make it better? Like, will putting
Hmm.
that storyline in a TV show based format actually improve the story and make it more loved?
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping they do with it. Or it might have the
Yeah.
opposite reaction and they actually make it worse. We don't know, but
We'll
yeah.
find out. We'll find out. I mean,
Yeah.
because my issue with, I mean, we're kind of just going on a tangent on Last of Us here, so I'll try to wrap it up. But I think we talked about this before, where I think if we experience the story by just watching it rather than being an active participant in the
Mhm.
story, actually would benefit the story a bit more. And my issue with the game is not with the direction that they went with the story, but just kind of how it was executed. The pacing really kind of just drags a lot, especially in the latter half where it kind of switches up the gameplay or the perspective of the game. And
Yeah.
that point kind of
Mhm.
is like, oh man. And also that's like its own separate thing. Like I wish
Yeah.
they did sort of constantly interchanging the perspective rather than having it separately, which I'm
Mhm.
hoping that maybe that's what they're gonna do in the show. But maybe that
Yeah.
separate, like first half and latter half, different perspectives could still work. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah,
Mhm.
but again, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll
Yeah,
see.
those who have played the
I
game
may
know
actually,
exactly
yeah.
what he's talking about. Yeah.
I may replay the
Yeah.
game before the show comes out
Mhm.
just to
It's a
I don't
fantastic game, it really
know.
is. But I
Yeah.
want to actually touch on a point that you said earlier, and that can maybe
Mm.
segue us into this discussion about certain video games being turned into movies.
Yeah.
You mentioned that that video games are better put in a TV show format because you spend hours with these characters.
Hmm.
And I think for longer games, like games that are more than 10 hours, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that because you need to have that longer story to really establish the characters and, sit with them for a while, understand who they are in order to properly, hit the right storytelling points. But I
Yeah.
also think that there are definitely games that are suited for movies as well. I think there are certain games that
Hmm.
will be good in a movie format. Like for instance, even though I'm not the biggest fan of this movie adaptation, but I think Mario is a good video game
Mm.
to be put into a movie because
Yeah.
it doesn't really have a very long plot and it's easier to
Yeah.
fit it into a 2-hour format than a TV show. Including
100%.
like I mean
Yeah.
like the reception with Sonic was pretty decent. I've never seen the Sonic movies, but I've heard it was good. Uh,
I enjoyed them.
yeah.
I'm not. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
played the video games, but by itself, I thought it was a fun movie. Fun
Mm.
movies.
Yeah, so I think
Um,
like there definitely are movies that are games that are better suited for movies, which I think those
yeah,
games are games that don't really have a big plot focus. And then video games that are very plot heavy are better suited for TV shows.
100% agree with
Yeah.
that actually. Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mario isn't really known for having the most complex stories, but I
Yeah.
think the
Well,
characters,
yeah.
at least, you know, people love the characters. I think as long as you do the characters justice, I think it can work. Remind me, did you like
Mm-hmm.
the Mario movie?
I thought it was all right. I had some issues with certain decisions that they made, particularly
Yeah.
regarding the soundtrack, which I had a
Oh,
huge
yeah,
problem with because they
yeah,
kept on playing popular pop songs. Which I
yeah.
get that it's a kids movie, but you can still make a movie entertaining and not include pop songs that don't fit with
Hmm.
the style of Mario at all. Like
Yeah,
it completely took me
yeah.
out of the films when they played like I don't even
Hmm.
they played like No Sleep Till Brooklyn in a Mario song which doesn't fit Mario's theme at all, and it's just like why are
Yeah.
they playing this?
It's
Whereas like I
so,
mean I
yeah.
mean like look at Transformers 1. That's an
Mm,
example of a really like more serious animated movie, but it's definitely still fun for kids to watch, and they don't
yeah,
include silly songs. You know, like I'm like, why?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
I had that issue with the film as well,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the soundtrack. Because I mean, I don't play the Mario games, but I've listened to a lot of its music, and there's a lot of beautiful music in a lot of the Mario games, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so confusing why they went that route with the movie because there's so much they could pull from.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
All the
also,
amazing
yeah.
soundtracks that they had. Exactly. I agree.
And
Yeah.
whenever they did that, whenever they played a popular song during the movie, it just kind of takes you out of it because it
It
feels
does.
so. It's such a. There's something so corporate feeling about it. You know, it feels
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it
Exactly.
feels like a studio movie. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, we talked about this before. When the trailer came out for Transformers One, I thought that was the vibe that I was getting. That we were gonna get that like sort of corporate with a movie with a lot of pop songs hidden throughout it, so it
Mm.
can cast a bigger net for a bigger audience. But thankfully, it didn't do that. Which, by the
Exactly.
way, Transformers One was amazing. The marketing kind of did it dirty.
It's
We're saying that
absolutely
everyone, me and
incredible.
Phoenix absolutely
Yeah.
loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's
Um.
probably like I mean, I know the Michael Bay Transformers movies are genuinely loved and but that being said, I still think Transformers 1 is probably my favorite Transformers movie that I've seen.
Yeah.
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 Oh, for sure. I would
Yeah.
100% agree with that. This isn't really common knowledge, so I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
To whoever's watching us, but we both study film, and I'm still in the film, trying to get in the
Mm.
film industry anyway. And I would like my dream anyway, which probably is it's a kind of a pipe dream, but if I had my hands on the film rights for Resident Evil, I know exactly how I would let it play out because I think it has a place in film, and I think there's a lot of horror fans that would love the characters that are introduced in the Resident Evil games, and the movies haven't really done that yet. Like there's the original, um, I forget the director's name, but it's the Resident Evil franchise with Mila Jovovich, where
Mm.
it just kind of goes its own direction, and they're enjoyable by themselves, I think, if you haven't played the games. But when they start introducing characters from the games, like they introduce Leon or Ada, they're completely different. They're not even
Mm.
close to what how they are from the video games and how they're established in the video. And so I still think that it has a chance um to do well if it's done well through movies. Like just do the first one
Yeah,
could be the one in the Spencer Mansion. The second one, obviously, Resident Evil 2 with Leon and Claire.
and Mr.
Um,
X.
yeah,
God, I hate
and
that
Mr. X. Yeah, I
guy.
imagine Mr. X in a movie, man. Imagine
He would be cool.
experiencing,
Yeah,
yeah,
he would.
and imagine
So
experiencing the story without having played it because you hated playing it
yeah,
because of
so
Mr. X.
so you're saying that Resident Evil is definitely more suited for the movie style format than a TV show, or do you think there's a possibility a TV show could
I
be made?
think I think a TV show could still work.
Hmm.
But yeah, I definitely think it could still work.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know because it's such an enclosed story where they're just in an enclosed area. Like the first game is literally just in a mansion.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of different levels. They go through a lot of different stuff, but the game's really long because there's a lot of puzzles and there's a lot of running around and
Hmm.
going back to different places. And for it to be, I mean, the first game is literally mostly gameplay than it is story,
Yeah.
and that's why I think it could fit well for uh in the movie format.
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I think yeah, I don't know. We haven't really gotten that yet. I mean, we come close to again. So the latest Resident Evil movie that we got was Welcome to Raccoon City, which you haven't seen, but
Hmm.
would probably hate it since you played Resident Evil 2 now.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
mean, from what
the
you've
ish,
told me,
yeah,
it sounds bad. Yeah.
yeah, and it has that like Uncharted issue where it looks like Resident Evil, but it just doesn't feel like it, and you see things that are like, yeah, this is supposed to be Resident Evil, but as you're watching the characters and you're going through the story, it doesn't really feel like the video games, and also the characters don't really feel like the way they are in the games. And
Hmm.
I think that's also the most important part. I feel like a lot of us who play video games, or at least play video games with a story, we get really attached to the characters, and there's sort of
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, and
And
there's
it's easier to
occasionally
do that with
yeah,
video games because you're actually in that person's shoes.
hmm
So you develop such
yeah,
a tight attachment. And then to see them, like, when they're adapted to film, to see the characters not properly brought to light is, I mean, it resonates with people that have played the games more. Like it's more of a
yeah,
disservice to the audience, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and in the Welcome to Raccoon City movie, they did essentially three games in one movie. And so
Hmm.
that's not even like, and there's a lot of content or stories,
Like it sounds so
plot
stupid when you
points
put
that
it that way.
happens in Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
There's a lot of plot points that happens in Resident Evil 2. And to have all try to have all those
Hmm.
plot points brought into one movie, but also bring in plot points the first movie, it just doesn't
Hmm.
you don't have enough time to really get to know these characters a lot because it's just an
Yeah.
ensemble of just different things happening at the same time. And well, actually, I say three games, but really it's just two because Resident Evil 3, the game,
Hmm.
happens at the same time as Resident Evil 2, and it has a character from Resident Evil 1. So technically, having Resident Evil 1 happen at the same time as Resident Evil 2 cancels out Resident Evil 3, so it doesn't actually happen now. And now we can't see Nemesis, who was in the third film, who's like the Mr. X of that game.
Of the third film, yeah. And he
So it's just kind
looks
of like
freaking scary, man. I gotta say. Like
yeah,
as a little side note,
yeah.
like he looks way scarier. Like his character model looks way scarier than Mr. X's does.
He runs.
Yeah, that alone, I'm like, oh
He
god, like
runs.
that sounds way worse.
He runs now.
Yeah. God.
He runs now.
He runs now.
Oh god, let's not get back to Star Wars. I can't right
No,
now.
no, we've dissed it way too many times.
Yeah,
Way too many conversations about that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, well, I have a game that I don't know if you've played, but I think
Mm.
it could be pretty fun. as like, okay, now preface this, I haven't actually finished this game, but
Okay.
from the bit that I've played, I can tell that this could be a fun game to put into either a TV show or movie format. I
Hmm.
don't know if you've heard of it, Josh. It's called Disco Elysium.
Oh, I have the game. I haven't played it yet.
Yeah, it
I've
is
heard
absolutely.
so many good things about this game.
Yeah, it's fantastic, man. It's fantastic. For those that don't know, it's like it's a game where you step in the roles of a detective trying to solve the case of a murder, and it's one of those games where you have like unlimited choices to make. You can take the story in whatever direction you kind
Yeah.
of feel, and it's like a choose your own adventure sort of game, and it really delves into like the detective's like psyche as well. Like there's one guy that voices like multiple different parts of his personality, and he does a great
Hmm.
job with the voiceover. But either way, yeah, it's a very story dialogue based game, and I think that it could be adapted into a TV. I think leaning more towards the TV show side. I think that it could be
Yeah.
adapted into a TV show nice because um I kind of see it as a show that could be more about, like, obviously it's about the investigation, but I see that it's an opportunity for them to make a detective show where it really delves into the detective's mind and
Yeah.
kind of what is going on within his head. And I think that is an
But did
interesting angle that they could take it.
are you thinking of like a live action adaptation or just an animated adaptation? Because
I
I think
think,
having it
yeah.
animated, because the art style in the game, from what I've seen, looks
Mhm.
phenomenal. And if you
It
just do a
is.
show that looks like that, it would look so good.
Exactly what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. That's exactly what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. Animated is definitely the way to go. That's
Yeah.
how I feel about. This is kind of a pivot point, but that's how I feel about Legend of Zelda. I really think that Legend of Zelda would be
Yes.
so much better if it was animated, and the fact that
Yeah.
I'm hearing that it's live action is, I'm kind of concerned.
Hmm.
I wish they really took the animated route because I think that some people are afraid to go that route because they think like audiences, like a lot of older audiences wouldn't be
Yeah.
appealed to animation. They'd be more appealed to live action, and
And
I really
yeah.
think that they shouldn't be afraid to go with animation when it feels right.
Hmm.
And I really wish the
I
Legend of Zelda
yeah.
TV show would be animated, but okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I've only played Wind Waker, but I feel like just from that game I already understand this sort of like childlike wonder as you move around the world and just discover different things, going to different dungeons and I feel like that can only be read faithfully through animation. Like imagine a Studio Ghibli kind of film, but with like Legend of Zelda.
Fuck.
Like,
Sometimes I think it's. Sometimes I swear
how
we have the same
amazing that
brain.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it would be so amazing, and I feel like animation would just do it justice. Not to say that it wouldn't work in live action. I've heard people, I've seen like stuff of like fans also pitching how like originally when Twilight Princess came out, they were kind of I saw a Reddit post where they were thinking about like where they were writing a script that was like a live action um Legend of Zelda film in the same tone as Twilight Princess, but also kind of borrowing the tone that you would get from Lord of the Rings. And I thought that was also kind of a cool idea.
That,
Um,
yeah, actually
yeah,
that does sound cool. Yeah. I
right,
definitely
yeah,
think that it could work well as live action, but I think that when I first think of what a Legend of Zelda TV show would look like, my first instinct is animation because I just think that
yeah,
it has like that, yeah, like you said, that childlike sense of discovery almost, because Link is
mm-hmm,
always is like either he's like a late teenager or he's a kid in the games, like
yeah,
he's at most he's a young adult, you know
mm-hmm,
but he's just a kid going about through this trial trying to save a princess, or
mm-hmm.
trying to stop the world from ending, trying to defeat Ganon and whatnot. I think that like you can capture that better with animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey,
Hmm.
hey, Tom Holland as Link and Mark Wahlberg as Zelda.
Oh yeah,
I
actually,
mean,
you had me lost for a second there, but when you mentioned Mark Wahlberg as Zelda,
there you go. There you go.
be
He's got to
fantastic.
have Mark Wahlberg there. And in the end, Zelda
Yeah.
finally gets her mustache.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Zelda finally gets the mustache. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
exactly.
like she's finally the Zelda that we all know from the video games.
Yeah,
Here we are.
Link finally, Link does this thing where he
Yeah.
rips off his shirt and there's like a spider symbol underneath,
Mm-hmm.
and then he starts swinging through Hyrule. Like that's what I'm
But
thinking will be
okay.
good.
Jokes aside, though, we were actually talking about this when we watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes together. That's going to be the same director as the coming Legend of Zelda movie. So if it's
Hmm.
anything tone-wise like
He's
that movie,
fantastic. Yeah.
I feel like it could work. Because I remember, um, when we watched that movie, there was a scene where they saw zebras, and the way it was shot or the way it was executed, it kind of felt like it was my first time seeing a zebra. Like there was something magical about it. I don't know if it was the music or just the direction in general or maybe everything. But if they can bring that sense of like magic kind of exploration of just like again childlike wonder, that would be great if it translates well. If it translates.
If it
But again,
translates well.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I think for both of us, like an animated route, is the peak
Hmm. But
route.
live action definitely is possible for sure. I
Yeah.
can still envision it
Mm-hmm.
succeeding in my head.
Jack Black is
Yeah.
Ganondorf.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Check. Why do I? Okay. Okay. Like, wait. When's the Minecraft movie being released again? Because I want to talk about
Oh
this.
my! I
Like,
forgot about that movie. You're right.
dude,
I don't know. I
that
don't
is like
know.
one of the wackiest trailers I've ever seen in a long time. Like, that is
Yeah,
like
it looks a
seeing
little
the
rough.
Minecraft
Yeah.
movie trailer is almost like looking at the original like Mario Brothers movie cast and just being like,
Hmm.
what is going on? Like what like what were
Yeah.
they thinking, man? I don't know. I'm just like, this looks not like Minecraft. Like
Yeah.
it is
I mean,
Minecraft, but it definitely is not Minecraft.
time will
Yeah.
tell how that movie does.
Yeah.
Jack Black as Steve thing. What was quite.
Yeah.
I'm Steve.
I
I
am
love Jack Black, by the
Steve.
way,
Yeah,
but
he's
I
great
don't know.
actually,
It's
yeah.
just yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, who would you cast as Steve? I don't know what
Yeah,
kind
it's
of plot
hard.
they're doing or what's happening. It kind of seems like
Mhm.
from the vibe I get, it's like a bunch of people from
Yeah.
the real world being transported into the Minecraft world. Like that
That's what I get. Yeah,
kind of
it's supposed to
story.
be kind of like a
Yeah,
goofy, like kind of like, I think they're trying to go for like a more wacky comedic vibe.
yeah.
Which Minecraft doesn't really have that feel in it. Like Minecraft is definitely not supposed to be like a wacky, goofy game. Like it's more of like a
It could
exploration.
be.
It could be,
But I
yeah.
mean, it's just like,
Yeah, but
can you
I like the
even?
sense
Yeah,
I get from Minecraft. It's more about like you play the game, and while you're playing it, you always feel calm. You feel relaxed. You're exploring. It's like a sense of
yeah.
discovery that you get. And sure, you have like some tense moments where you're like delving in a dungeon and like 20
Yeah. You know
skeletons are
what?
shooting at you. But
Why don't
I,
we talk about this?
Mhm.
How would a Minecraft movie?
Okay, I don't know if this is a hot take. Because there's a Minecraft is the most sold game on the planet.
Is it really?
I mean, I think Tetris is like the most like downloaded game, but I
Really?
think
Oh,
Minecraft
oh,
has like the most like uh
purchased.
purchase titles. Yeah, purchase.
Okay.
I think I could be wrong. Okay, I'm just gonna look this up quickly. Uh,
Yeah, if you're wrong, you're
yeah,
an idiot. You're
is
dumb.
Minecraft the best
You're stupid.
selling game?
Nerd buds? Or like nerd stew buds.
Yeah, Minecraft is
Cut
the
that out.
best-selling video game in the
Cut
world,
that out.
having sold more than 300 million copies worldwide. So pretty much
Wow.
anybody that has ever touched a controller
Hmm.
probably has played Minecraft once.
Controller
Um
piece.
and or PC, yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a hot take because I'm sure there's lots of people that would love to see a Minecraft movie. I personally think that Minecraft, I don't think it's a game that you can really adapt
Oh
into
well,
a
yeah, hundred
show at
percent.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really think that even choosing Minecraft as a game to make into a movie or TV show is just kind of a mistake. I don't think that's a game you
yeah.
should look at
I
for that.
100% agree with that. But we've also gotten the. Here's the thing, right? Because I also think I absolutely agree with you. I don't think Minecraft needs at all.
Yeah.
But I also thought that Legos didn't need a movie, and yet the Lego movie came out, and it was
Oh,
surprisingly amazing.
that movie made me cry. That movie is
Right?
fantastic. Yeah, that was so good.
So I think if
Yeah.
it's just like if
Yeah, that's such
done
a good
right,
point. How did they make Legos
yeah,
good? How did they do that?
right. How did it like?
Yeah.
I didn't expect to feel emotional by the end, and somehow it made it work, right? And yes, it doesn't. Not everything needs an adaptation, but if done right, if there's a good story and it has an emotional core to it, it could still work. There's
So you're
actually I just
saying
yeah
that if we're
yeah.
locked in a room and someone is forcing us to write a Minecraft movie, like how would we make it? That's what you're pretty much like trying to say.
Here's what
Yeah.
okay before that I
Yeah.
there's this there's a YouTube video. It's like around 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I've shared this with you. And it's kind
Oh
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
the Minecraft movie, it's called The Minecraftian. And there's no dialogue. And they're playing Lord of the Rings music in the background. And it's just Steve's journey kind of surviving the world of Minecraft. And also it kind of has its own plot by the end where it saves a bunch of people. um Watch it if you want to understand how that works. But it's I remember actually really loving that short film. Actually, we should link that somewhere because I think if you're
Yeah.
a Minecraft
It'll
fan and
be
you love
linked in
playing
the
Minecraft,
video and on
yeah.
Spotify too. Yeah.
And for
Mhm.
old Minecraft fans who have seen it, it's gonna be quite nostalgic for you. I remember watching it as a kid and be like, so cool. Um, and I think so. If we were to make a Minecraft movie, it would I think it has something to do with survival and also trying
Yeah,
to
100%. Yeah.
yeah, because I
Mhm.
think so. I'm borrowing from the Minecraftian movie, but majority of the film, Steve is just alone, and it feels like he's trying to figure out his place in the world and just trying to survive. And at some point, he even befriends the like a wolf by like
Yeah.
you know um
Yeah.
helping it out with a bone and stuff. And eventually it's like he's trying to find connection in a place where there is no one else, and eventually in
Mhm.
the end he does find people. And maybe you can bring in that other stuff. I mean, I don't know what the lore is in the Minecraft world, if there's lore
Yeah,
for
if there is
Steve.
lore, I have
But
no idea.
yeah,
I'm just going off of
I
what
mean,
we
yeah,
played, yeah.
I mean, Matt Pat has done
Yeah.
some like things about like the moms, but there wasn't anything said
Mhm.
about say Steve, I think.
Yeah.
So I think so there I because for majority of my time playing as a kid,
Mhm.
I was always playing alone and I was just trying to mine for diamonds and stuff, right? And I built my
Mhm.
own house and I never really played with other people. And I think there's also a bit of like there's a calming feeling to playing Minecraft, but there's also a bit of like a loneliness kind of feeling. And there's also
Yeah,
times where
100%,
it
yeah.
can get kind of scary.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not familiar about the night. Like that could be there could be like horror moments where he finds out like there's Endermen at night or like zombies come out and the
Yeah.
skeletons come.
He sees Hero
And
Brian stand in the corner of his
yeah,
house.
I think if
Yeah.
it's taken seriously, there could be
Mhm.
something quite emotional about making a Minecraft, especially with loneliness. I feel like they can touch and just trying to find connection um and surviving in a world that he doesn't understand, which I feel like could translate in real life. You know, we're
Yeah.
trying to survive in a world that's a lot where a lot of things are just like, why did that happen? I don't
Mhm.
understand, but you're just trying to adapt. It's not perfect, There's a lot of downs. If I dig
Mm-hmm.
straight down, I may fall into lava. I don't know, even, but
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
finding
Yeah.
peace in whatever that you had. Finding peace in
Mm-hmm.
the house that you built yourself. Something like that. That could be fun. That could
Yeah.
be good.
Exactly.
Um,
I think I don't know how else you would do it. Like I said, Minecraft is a very tricky game to pick to
yeah.
write a movie about. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm
It's a
also
challenging one for sure. Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of imagining this animated because I don't know how you would do the blocks thing. Like you
Yeah,
cut
no,
down a
it
tree and
it it has to be
you
animated. Yeah,
know,
it
I
has
don't
to
know how
be.
you would do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's
yeah,
why
that's
when I
our
first
yeah.
heard it was live action, I was like, "What is going on?" Like
Yeah, I
that
was like,
was
I'm
the
so
wrong
curious how
decision.
this is gonna look. Like, what is this gonna look like?
Yeah.
And now we see what it looks like,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's just they're trying to go for realism, but at the same time, they're trying to make it look cartoony, and it
It
just kind
looks
of
as
feels like
strange as like those
maybe
realism Minecraft
yeah,
mods you see on YouTube, where it's like that just
yeah.
looks weird.
Why did like
Yeah.
did it really have to be live action? What I'm thinking,
No.
you know.
Did it really have to be made? No.
There's actually a someone did like a fan edit where they turned all the human characters into like Minecraft people. And
I did see that. Yeah.
it actually kind of works that way. I just kind of wish
Yeah.
they committed to an animated thing. Um, anyway,
I was now I'm gonna pitch another game that I think like when you think of a game that should be made into a TV show, I think like this is probably one of the first games that comes to mind
hmm,
because it pretty much is a TV show already in the game.
yeah.
Because the writing is just so damn good, and that's Red Dead Redemption. Uh,
Oh,
like
mm,
that to me, that's like such an obvious choice. If you're gonna
yeah,
pick a game to make into a show, like come on, like
yeah. I
yeah, the
would be,
characters are
yeah,
just so well written. Like it's written
yeah.
like you're watching something play out in front of you. You know?
I think because
Yeah.
so we were talking about how
Hmm.
like there's a lot of video games that don't need adaptation, but I feel
Hmm.
like adaptations are important when you need people who say don't really enjoy playing video games or don't play video games in general.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of value in deep stories in video games, right? And I feel like
Exactly.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
stories with that really resonate with us. And unfortunately, those who don't play video games don't get to experience that and understand sort of
Some of the
the
best stories
complexity.
ever written are in
Yeah,
video games.
yeah.
Yeah.
And see, here's the
Hmm.
thing, right? There's a lot of people who don't play video games, and we've experienced Last of Us, and now with the show coming out, they're starting to experience what we experienced, right? It's just
Yeah,
kind of
dude.
opening the story for other people to feel the things that
Enjoy.
we felt and just loving the characters that we loved, and so they can finally
Exactly.
understand what we've been
Yeah.
loving this entire time. And so I feel like Red Dead, although to me sounds really scary to adapt into a movie or a show,
Yes, you have to be
is
careful
really
with
scary.
with what you write.
But I think
Yeah.
it's again, it's so good. The
Hmm.
story is just amazing, amazing, and Arthur Morgan is has when I first played it easily became one of
Yeah.
my favorite video game characters.
Arthur
Yeah.
Morgan is like known to be like is known amongst the gaming community as one of the best
Mm-hmm.
video game protagonists like ever
Yeah.
written, and people don't get to experience that. And
Yeah.
if they were to take Red Dead 2 and do the same thing that they did with The Last of Us, where they write a story
Mm.
that works and they push it out, and it's just so meaty and juicy.
Yeah.
Oh, like I would love to see something like that. Yeah.
For me,
Hmm.
this the scariest part is like I've Red Dead 2 has such hyper realistic graphics that they just feel like real people to me. And if someone
Yeah.
else steps into the shoes of these characters that aren't the way I see them, I've seen them or the way they
Hmm.
sound, it could bug me a little, because
Yeah,
Arthur
for
Arthur
sure.
has such a like specific voice. John has such a specific voice. Dutch has such a specific voice. If they just even just sound
Mhm.
differently, I was like, that's not.
Yeah, yeah, we gotta be like, who is this
Yeah.
guy?
So it's kind of
Yeah.
scary, but
Hmm.
again, it could still be done justice, you know?
Hmm. I think when it comes to writing the Red Dead story, they should do exactly what The Last of Us do, where they don't try and create their own new thing. I think they
Mm-hmm.
should just take from the source material and just present us the story as it is presented in the game.
Yeah.
That's exactly what The Last of Us did. And I'm not saying they can't go off book and make their own and do like some of their own things and
Yeah.
invent new plot points. That's what The Last of Us did, and it was great. They could definitely do that with Red Dead, but I still think they should treat the game as an outline for
Mm-hmm.
what the TV show would be, and
Yeah.
I think that's the only way you should do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I would
yeah.
also, since we're still on the topic
Hmm.
of Red Dead, I've always, whenever I play Red Dead 2, I've played through
Hmm.
their story times now, which I don't say, I can't say that for a lot of open world games. But I just love
Yeah,
that game a
especially since
lot.
Red Dead is an
Yeah.
insanely long game. Even if you
And
just
there,
gun the
yeah,
storyline, it takes so long to complete it.
yeah. And also,
Yeah.
there's something about the game that feels like a Western book, big,
Yeah.
chunky, but
Man.
beautiful book.
Yeah.
And I, so this is not a film adaptation, but I've always wanted, I was like, man, it would be amazing to read. Like I wish they would like release some kind of novelization of the book, just so maybe even book readers could read it. Because it's again, I think
Hmm.
you know what? I think Red Dead 2 should just be adapted on every single platform. Books,
Yeah.
movies, shows, just so everybody can
Yeah.
experience this how great this story is. But I've actually
Hmm.
seen someone on Reddit, I think, was trying to write a novelization of Red Dead 2. And that was kind of interesting. I actually have two things that I wrote down that could be
Hmm.
interesting.
Yes. Shoot them.
Um,
I shot my ideas out. Yeah.
yeah, I'll shoot one. I've had
Hmm.
so these are two things that um
Hmm.
that you and I love. Well, one thing that I love and one thing that you really love. So this is kind of goes for both of us. But first thing, um, I- I've been going through a lot of the Final Fantasy games recently,
Hmm.
and I've turned into a fan, as you know, because I keep bothering you about Final Fantasy.
You do, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, sorry, I shouldn't
and
say you bother me about it, but yeah, you talk about it.
yeah,
I mean, he's wearing a
yeah,
Final Fantasy shirt, people. There you
yeah.
go.
I'm wearing a shirt right now,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
now here's the thing. So each um numbered Final
Hmm.
Fantasy, it's its own story, right?
Yeah.
I think, and there's something really charming about the world of Final Fantasy with the chocobos and the Moogles. I think if they did a Final Fantasy movie, they shouldn't adapt any of the video game stories, but actually just make an original story with the elements that create the world of Final Fantasy, and that would be really. I would actually have
Hmm.
like I have a movie in my head of how it would play out. That's a dream movie that I would like to. That'll never happen. Um, but
Yeah.
that would be really interesting. So yeah, I think that'd be really cool.
No, final. Do you
The
think it should be my
yeah,
initial gut instinct? Because I've never played the games, like any of the games.
yeah,
I'm a noob. My initial gut instinct, based on all the stuff that I see and everything, is that it. I feel like, again, like this is just off the top of my head. I feel like animation would work better. Now, what
yeah.
would you think?
So
Yeah.
I actually think it could
Hmm.
go both ways. I think you can do a live action um adaptation of the world of Final Fantasy. Now, each world in the numbered games are different, but they have
Hmm.
elements that are borrowed from every single game. And I think a live action, I think there's a way to make live action work, and I also think there's definitely a way that that animation could do better. I've been there's a lot of rumors that there's going to be a Netflix animated adaptation of one of the games, Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah.
Um, I think it depends on what kind of story you're telling, the setting that it is, because there's some Final Fantasy games that are set in like the medieval era, and there's games like Final Fantasy VII, which is in more of a
Sci-fi-ish sort of
yeah, a little bit
setting.
more of a sci-fi
Yeah.
setting. Final Fantasy 13 is more like a sci-fi setting. So I think it depends on what. It really just depends. You can go either way because you can go with any kind of story, um,
Hmm.
this original story. But I think if they're gonna do a Final Fantasy film, a lot of the games focus, or at least most of the games focus a lot on the relationship in within the game's party,
Hmm.
um, and with a lot of the characters. And I think that's what a lot of the Final Fantasy games, well, or the writing of the characters. And I think if you just pull off creating a party with interesting characters and lovable characters, it's kind of the cheesy thing, like the connections you make
Hmm.
along the way, that kind
Yeah,
of thing,
yeah.
going on a journey with your friends.
Yeah,
I feel
which is a
like
great thing to
that
put
would be
into a
great.
movie. Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like those stories about like friends and company and like journeying
yeah.
together, those always sell well. And I think that there's
Mm-hmm.
the people like they like that sort of like companionship
Yeah.
feel that
Yeah, yeah,
that
that's
I think it's a good
absolutely
sell.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So if there were to be a Final Fantasy movie, I think it should be, so this is my pitch that I'm pitching for a Final Fantasy movie.
Hmm.
It's about these misfits that don't really, so think, I guess I'm kind of borrowing from Guardians of the
Hmm.
Galaxy, where it's like these misfits that have their own stories, have their own backstories, and they have their own goals. But there's this greater evil that is kind of standing in front of him, and they have
Hmm.
to find companionship within each other and become friends to fight against this one evil and fight and fucking kill God.
That
there's
sounds
literally
good.
there's
Yeah.
literally
And
moments
it
in,
has to be
yeah.
with a fucking big ass massive sword that's like twice the size of
Oh
their body. It has to
yeah,
be with that, yeah.
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 One guy has to have a huge fucking sword.
Yeah.
Um, moving on, something that you love. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think it could be pretty interesting.
God, don't
An
say it.
animated adaptation
Oh God, no.
of Hollow Knight.
Oh, I knew you were
Now
gonna
hear
say
me
that.
out. Hear me out.
Oh,
Hear me
I
out.
don't know, man, but I
Hear
will
me
hear you
out.
out. Yeah.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
No English dialogue. It's all visuals with the art style of the game. And you
Mm-hmm.
just go through the story, and it doesn't flat out tell you what's going
Mm-hmm.
on,
Mm-hmm.
but you're just watching things
Yeah.
happening. But I think there
Mm-hmm.
is something charming about the dark world of Hollow Knight. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Well,
And there's these really kind of cute
there is like
characters in
a
this really dark world.
contrast to the
Yeah,
story is incredibly depressing and tragic and dark,
yeah,
and the world that you're in is in a miserable state, but yet it's contrasted with this very adorable, cute, like fun art style.
yeah.
Yeah.
I personally
Hmm.
think a movie with no dialogue and just visuals alone could really be, it has potential to be a
Hmm.
really beautiful movie. Or not even just a movie, it
Hmm.
could be a show. But
Yeah.
um yeah, cuz it doesn't, I would say it wouldn't really, cuz I think if you add voices, I feel like it would fuck up the the vibe of the
Yeah,
story of it.
there
Yeah.
is a mod for Hollow Knight, a
Mhm.
very popular one that came out called Hollow Knight Vocalized, where it
Yeah.
was a mod where someone hired a bunch of voice actors and put together a game where everything is
Mhm.
voiced, and it was genuinely well received. People did like
Yeah.
it. Um,
But I
so
do
I
feel
think,
like, yeah, I'm
yeah.
basing this off the base game because it's,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure having
Hmm.
voices in it would be really cool, but it's kind of,
Hmm.
it takes away from the whole bugs aspect of it. I feel like, you know.
It's well, it's more about like you're running through like a destroyed kingdom, like a kingdom that
Mhm.
used to be bustling and beautiful and teeming with life, and now it's been
Yeah.
ravaged and destroyed. It's very much It very much is like a Dark Souls-esque vibe, where like you can tell like the
Hmm.
area that you in used to be a lived in land, and now it's just
Yeah.
decimated and destroyed, and it's very tragic and lonely and
Hmm.
alienating, but yet you do come across like some pretty fun
Yeah.
characters. There are other
Because I
people,
mean,
but
yeah.
it's
Because
few and
here's the
far
thing.
between.
I also
Yeah.
think again, there's that aspect about the world of Hollow Knight. Same with like
Hmm.
I guess the Dark Souls games where it doesn't really tell you
Anything about the story.
exactly what's going on,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really exactly tell you everything about the world, but you have to
Hmm.
explore, kind of understand what's going on, right? And
Yeah.
I think having not having dialogue that doesn't just have exposition about oh this is that and this is this,
That
right?
is an interesting idea. When you put it
Yeah.
that way, it's kind of like the movie is about you figuring out what's going
Hmm.
on in the
Yeah.
story along with the character.
Yeah.
You
That's
kind of like are
exactly that's
piecing it
exactly it.
together. Yeah.
It's just it doesn't tell
Hmm.
you exactly what's going on with the world, what the issue is, but you're discovering it as you're watching the knight go through the
Hmm.
story, and then let's say that the ending where is it where he sacrifices himself? Is that one of the endings?
That's one of the endings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sacrifices himself
So
to
say
contain the infection. Yeah.
yeah. So
Hmm.
say if we get that ending, it's just like oh, I wonder what that's about, and they rewatch the movie. Like okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just kind of I think it would be interesting. It's like it there's also
Hmm.
that discovery part of it that you could with having no dialogue because you're just trying to discover you're discovering the world at least for those who aren't familiar with the game anyway
Hmm.
would discover the world as you're going through the story, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
that's
I feel like
my
we've stumbled
quote unquote
across another
pitch.
like Minecraft game where
Yeah.
I don't think it should be done, but
Hmm.
if it had to be done, then I think what you're pitching is a decent way to go about it.
Yeah.
Um,
One thing that just popped in my head. So
mhm.
there's season two, at least from the time that we're recording this. Season two of Arcane is coming out, and that's based on a League of Legends games.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Arcane is that so there's already a lot of lore established in the League of Legends game, which I'm not familiar with.
I
Um,
know
but
absolutely jack shit about League of Legends. Yeah,
yeah, hold on,
personally.
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to wipe something.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the League of Legends games have their own lore, but with the Arcane show, which has become like a big hit on Netflix, the Arcane show that kind of just ignores the lore that's established in the games and actually just kind of does its own thing. And it's
Hmm.
considered one of the better animated series coming out today. And
Yeah.
so that's an interesting thing because it doesn't follow what is established in the games, but instead did its own thing,
And it
but yet
worked.
it still worked.
Which is kind of
That's
contradicting
an
what we've
interesting
said in
case.
this podcast,
Yeah,
where it's like you should borrow from source material and kind
yeah.
of make it that way. But Arcane is an example of a show that
Hmm.
contradicts everything we've said, and it's still
Yeah.
successful. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's kind of
Hmm.
I don't know. I thought it'd be interesting to bring that up because again, it just does
Hmm.
its own thing, but it still works. But I think what makes it
Yeah.
work is that it takes characters that you don't really know well, at least the games, because you're just playing
Yeah.
as them,
Right. I
and it
don't know
takes
much about League of
them.
Legends, so I'm hesitant to say if the story. Would you say,
Yeah,
from what you know of League of Legends, that story is a main focus point in League of Legends, or is it
no,
definitely more gameplay
I don't.
focused?
Definitely gameplay focus.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and
Mm.
if you disagree with me, comment down below. But yeah,
Yeah.
in so I think that's also part of it. I think because
Hmm.
I think from what I understand, so say one of the characters' name is Jinx, right? And in the
Ah,
game,
yes,
she's kind
Jinx.
of
Yes.
yeah, she's kind of a
Hmm.
She's known as a Harley Quinn copycat.
I'm just gonna look up what Jinx is because I have no idea. Anyways, keep talking.
um, Jinx is known in the games as sort of a Harley Quinn copycat, which is kind of this crazy girl kind of character. Right? And
Oh yeah, that I could definitely see why people would say that. Wow. Yeah.
she kind of acts like Harley Quinn, at least from what I see in the game.
Mm.
And in the show, they kind of give a backstory to why she is the way that she is,
Yeah.
but they make it a super heartbreaking journey to get to that, right?
Mm.
And you realize that this quote unquote Harley Quinn copycat is really this just broken person that's just been done wrong throughout. And I
Right.
think that's what makes it work, right? It just gives so much levity. It just gives so much weight. That's the right word. It gives so much weight to the characters that you wouldn't initially think of in the first. So that's one thing. You haven't
Okay.
seen Arcane,
Yeah.
right?
No, I've not seen Arcane.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
have heard it's like, I mean, but like you, I have heard it's good. I have heard that like
Yeah.
the reception is like very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to be honest, before Arcane came out, like I didn't know anything about League of Legends, and I
Me neither.
personally had no idea that League of Legends had a story to it. I thought it was mostly just gameplay, and you would like.
Yeah.
I thought it was more of like an Overwatch game where you would pick characters to
Yeah.
play in online matches and then just do that. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it had so much story to it. Sorry to
I
all the League of
from
Legends fans,
Yeah.
but like, I just didn't thought the game
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of substance to it. But now I've learned that
I
it
mean,
does, and
there's yeah,
yeah.
there's apparently lore,
Hmm.
but people don't really focus on it.
Yeah,
What
it's
I
more
understand,
about
'cause, like,
gameplay, from my
yeah,
understanding.
yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody who in my circle
Hmm.
plays the game tells me not to play it because the community is apparently really toxic.
That's what I've heard. Dude,
So
I swear every League of Legends player I've met literally tells me not to play the game. I'm like,
yeah, and they play it all the
like,
time. So
like
it's like,
what?
okay,
Like, oh, okay, I won't play the game that you love
yeah,
to play. Like,
yeah.
it's just so weird. But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're running out of time. Thank you everyone for listening. If you made it this, just
Yeah, and if you
hearing us
have, I'm very impressed. Thank you.
rambling. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We hope to do more soon.
Mhm.
We do have a guest, I think, in our next recording.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going to be an interesting topic.
He's
Look out for
a
that.
friend from film school. Very like probably one of the biggest movie buffs I've ever met. So
Oh yeah,
we'll
for
definitely
sure.
lean more to movies in that episode for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And recently, at least as of right now, as we're recording this, we just hit 300 subscribers. So
Yes, we
yeah.
have. Yeah, I'm yeah,
Oh
we're
yeah.
really happy about it. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Majority of you
Mhm.
are definitely Hollow Knight fans based on how the last video was performing. And
Yeah.
if you're a Hollow Knight fan, welcome. What did you think about the Hollow Knight pitch
Yeah.
adaptation?
Yeah. If
You
you're
know?
true Hollow Knight fans, please say it shouldn't be made. Don't give them ideas.
And if
Yeah.
you have ideas of what
Mhm.
could be adapted into a movie or show, comment down below. Let's make a discussion. It'd be really fun to interact with you guys.
It would, yeah. It'd be
Anyhow,
fun to bring
yeah,
more traffic to the podcast. I definitely want the podcast to be
for sure.
more present on the channel than it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we're trying to make it more film focused, just to kind of balance, because we did want this to be sort of a combination of both games and movies, and we've been kind of neglecting the side of the nerd buds, and so we're
Mhm.
introducing it here more in podcast.
In the podcast,
So
yes.
if you guys like this, if you guys have topics that you would like us to discuss
Mhm.
through the podcast, or if you have video suggestions, please let us know. And thank you for listening to
100%.
this whole thing.
Thank you so much, guys. Yes.
See you guys next time.
Nerd out.
Nerd out. Let's not make that a thing, please. Let's not do that.
Nerderbots.
No.
Roll out.
All right, I'm leaving Nerd Buds. Bye.
No, he's gonna turn to the Megatron. Everybody, he's turned into the
You're
Megatron
gonna be
now.
Nerd Bud. It's just gonna be Nerd Bud now.
You have betrayed Nerdotron and its citizens. You are hereby banished from Iacon.
Decepticons. fuck this guy. Bye.